edition of the Inside Out Show. My name is Sandra Eze. Thank you so much for joining us, and my audience, thank you so much for making out time to be a part of the show. And don't forget, if you're at home and you're wondering if you can be a part of our audience. It's free. Follow our pages online and you can get information on how to be here and be a part of our live audience. We cannot wait to have you. Right, Charles.
You're always looking nice. How do you manage to look this good?
I don't know.
It's not fair.
I honestly, I make an effort, and then I have a good team behind me.
You know, right? You look nice. That's all.
And then God's blessings too. Thank you. I never get tired of hearing that. Thank you. Okay, so today we are discussing something very controversial. Given not really controversial because it is controversial, but because it's Nigerian society, and we know how we are. We know ourselves. So we're discussing adult toys. A couple of weeks back, a news broke on Facebook. Different blogs carried it about the emergence of this full-bodied sex toy. Yes, a female, precisely. So people are talking, and then guys are. And a couple of days later, some guy from Ghana blogged about it and said, or rather, put up a Twitter comment and said, "You know what? I have this. I'm the first guy in Ghana to officially have a full human sex toy." So the question now is, adult toy, obviously it's here to stay, I imagine. So should it be encouraged, or what is the relevance of it? Why is it such a big deal? Why is it even so expensive? So many questions around this. And do you really need it to boost your relationship, or whatsoever you do? That and so much more we're discussing on this show today. Now, moving on to meet my panelists straight up, starting first with Mr. Mustapha Sanbe, who is a clinical psychologist. Thank you for being here. Moving on to Iheoma Obibi, the creative director, Intimate Pleasures. Thank you for being here. And finally, Solomon Johnson, who is a cleric. Thank you. Okay. So obviously, my first question would go to you, Iheoma. This is obviously your field, so it's ideal I throw the first question at you. What are adult toys precisely?
Adult toys are objects that you bring into your relationship to enhance your relationship for both males and females, and so you find that couples use them if they want to spice up their relationship. Usually, they've had a few kids have gone to boarding school, they're elderly, they might have erectile dysfunction. There are lots of reasons why people will bring adult toys into the relationship. I think our cultural context confuses the fact that these things are actually there to make it better, rather than take the place of a human being, of either genders. So,
okay. All right, let me get to you, Solomon Johnson. You've heard what she says.
Yes.
What's your view on adult toys, sex toys?
Well, I don't subscribe to the use of adult toys because in the beginning it wasn't so. So in the beginning, sex was meant to be between a man and a woman. So I don't subscribe to the use of toys. And another thing is that sex is one of the beautiful gifts that God has given to mankind. And the only way we can show appreciation to that God-given gift is for us to use our sexual organ in the right way, not in the wrong way.
So, needing or using an adult toy to enhance your relationship is a wrong way.
Yes, for me, I see it as an abuse of the gift.
You are a psychologist. First of all, before I move on to my question, what's your take on what she has said and what he has said?
Thank you very much, first of all. The issue of sex toys can be viewed from psychological, biological, and social angles. Okay. And by social angle, you can look at it from
Mr. Solomon Johnson?
Mr. Solomon's angle, but from the biological angle, you can look at it from from biopsycho angle, you can look at it from Ihema's point of view, okay? And that is what I've got to say for now.
Okay. This is the Inside Out Show. We will be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Okay, welcome back. It's the Inside Out Show, and we are discussing the very controversial topic, adult toys.
Let me tell you, we have a lot of mature singles. We have a lot of widowers. And I respect his views, but I don't think it's reflective of the current time we're in. So whilst I'm not saying they should stand on the road and be hawking their bodies, the reality is we have divorce. Divorce was not a precedent in the Bible, but there is current divorce. So what happens to those women that are divorced? What are we telling them? What happens to those men that are divorced? What are we telling them? I think we need to be realistic in what we're saying about adult toys, because adult toys are not in isolation of the change that's happening in families, in communities, how people visit themselves. The reality is that some men don't know what they're doing in bed. They have no clue. And they have no clue because we don't have a sophisticated sexual health education that teaches young people ABC. What we have is a lot of focus on family life. To get to family life, they need to know where to put it. They're not going to put it on the nose.
Like sex is a very relevant part of family life. Yeah. So, Mr. Sanbe, Ihoma, you give certain reasons why people might want to, and part of it is maybe when you're older and couples who need help in spicing up their relationship and all that. I was speaking with a friend of mine who was telling me about this friend who just recently bought the sex toy and was like, woo, so let's get this sex toy and see what it's about. So it wasn't for maybe to spice up his relationship. It was just another single guy who is curious and like, okay, let's get this. And he called out his friend. I was like, you know what? I don't need a woman anymore. So he opted for that and he was like, use and move over, use and move over. In a situation like that, is that encouraged? I'm speaking to either one of you, or you could choose to answer that.
Well, I mean, you want to have a take since you didn't it.
I just feel that there's a lot of focus on, there's a lot of focus within the community as Nigerians that if you use sex toys, you're going to get rid of men or get rid of women. And I think that's the wrong way to look about it.
The thing is, in the society, we look at it as masturbation. Solomon, am I right?
Yeah.
Like you're giving yourself pleasure by yourself.
But guess what? People are already doing that behind closed doors. Stop lying.
Okay.
Don't feed into the myth. They're already doing that. So you see, and that's part of the problem. You're saying, oh, they say we're not supposed to. How do you know they're not masturbating? How? Are you there? You're not there, are you? You can't speculate. You can only speak for yourself. And you can speak for your husband. You can't speak for anybody else. Otherwise, people like me who are providers of a service will not be in existence if they were not doing anything. Our biggest, for us, we spend a lot of time encouraging couples to effectively communicate with themselves. You will have couples who have been married 10 years and the only thing they share is good morning, I'm doing XYZ today, and that's it. They don't even sleep. They sleep in the same bed, but they're not talking.
Why, you think that's because of bad sex?
Bad sex. He probably has a girlfriend outside. She's probably taking care of children, doesn't have time, has added 10 kilos, is not looking as sexually, visually attractive as he saw her when she was a size 10 and had jiggy down her waist. She's now, by the time you've had 2 or 3 kids, your body is not the same. Your breasts are down your ankles. You're just not the same. Your body never recovers from having children. Now, for many, many Nigerian men, they're visual. They're visual. They want to see, you know, the lipstick, the hair, blah, blah, blah. If you're looking after 4 kids under 8, you know how we born like stepladder. If you're looking after kids, those amount of kids, you don't have time for that. And that's where the problem is. So I think, with all due respect, asking me questions about whether it's taking over or not taking over is irrelevant, because no one is taking over anything.
No, but you know what? You know what? On Facebook, I'll tell you this. I don't know how many people saw it, but it was a constant conversation. Charles, you're always on social media. It's a constant. People were like, women, why are you scared of?
No, I saw it.
Yeah.
They came onto our own page, Facebook page. In fact, we got lots of threats, and I thought the whole thing was funny because we've been selling them for the last 2 years. So it's not a big deal. They've been in the market for years. It's just that somebody has discovered them. The reality is we need help in relationships to communicate effectively how we feel about each other, how we love each other. And I'm not talking about Nigerian love, which is money. No. I'm talking about love, about caring, to be nice and civil to each other, to be committed to your relationship. Whether you're married or not is irrelevant, because once you're over 18, once you're over the age of majority, you're entitled to a healthy sexual life. The issue is, how do you interpret it? Some people may interpret it as to be married, and I want to be married and have that healthy sexual life in a marriage. You're entitled to that. Others may decide, well, I don't actually want to be married yet, for whatever reasons, but I would like to be in a relationship in which I'm respected and I'm committed. And I think those are the kinds of discussions we should be having. And I think it's a false. Nigerian men, half of them don't know what they're doing. They think it's only to do, okay, wind your waist, bend down, touch your toes, bang, bang, bang. The women that I have to be honest, the women that call our hotline, that's the only thing. My husband doesn't know what he's doing.
Women are your biggest clients.
Women are our biggest clients because they buy, and then they buy things for couples, for them and their husband. But they're usually the first ones. Then we have a few men who are just, they're in love with their wives, but their wives have no idea what they're doing. They're lying there like holy wager, just lying there. They're not moving left. They're not moving right. They're not doing anything. Do you understand? There's a problem. There's a problem, and I think all of us need to face the reality that there's a problem. The men don't know what they're doing. They don't do what the women want in bed. They think it's to just press like this and press like this. Oh yeah, bend down. It's not like that. What worked for this girlfriend, Sandra, may not work for this girlfriend, Paulina. Then Ngozi in the middle has different tastes. If you're dating 3 of them at once, and you know the average Nigerian man has 3 girlfriends on the go at any point in time. I mean, doctor, I'm lying.
Is you lying, Mr. Sanbe? No, but did he just say you're lying?
No, he said any statistics.
For me as a professional, I will want to come from statistical point of view, okay?
For Nigerian women, it's far harder to have extra boyfriends than it is for the men to have extra girlfriends. This is, listen.
Sorry, I think I want to take on that. Man essentially same designed as a universal broadcaster, okay? Manure spreader, if you allow that, okay? By that token, that means at every point in time, the man essentially is having a master key between the 2 labs that can open any door.
My problem is, It's not so much how they've been designed. It's what society has socialized them to accept. Because in other parts of the world, where there are penalties for dropping your sprogs everywhere, you know, breeding like a rabbit.
Over what time?
Listen, wait.
There is historical background. There is historical background.
Listen, let me finish. You know? In other societies where there's an accountability mechanism put in place for men who want to spread it about. What it means is that you hold yourself because you know that you are accountable financially. If you have a child, the state doesn't want to know that you are just testing the waters. They want to know that you have a child, the child is under 18, pay for your child. They don't want to know anything else.
Excuse me, have you forgotten so soon what happened in the White House?
Listen, I'm not forgetting. I'm not. Listen,
that is why I said it's universal.
Listen, I'm not disputing that. But what I'm saying, not just White House. The Australian Prime Minister resigned 3 days ago. Have you forgotten? And he left his wife for the media. So it's not like, however, the penalties are high. He's been forced to resign. The penalties are higher. Yes. He has been forced. In fact, not only
time.
No, it wasn't over time.
Query history.
I'm not. You see,
there was a time in Nigeria that you could have pride yourself as I'm having 4 wives, you know. But these days that is filtering, and that is why the extra is seeming popular. I'm becoming conspicuous.
So you agree there are extras?
See, listen.
I have always said that.
But it's not so much that the extras are the extras are there. There was also a time, because I have aunties, you know, my grand aunts are older, and they tell me stories of a time when you may not have married 4 wives, but many men were monogamous. Yes. In the 40s, before independence. I have a grand aunt, she's in about her 80s. Now she says, listen, the men there were highly responsible. You married in the church and you had 1 wife. And there were very few men that had extras. Okay. And if you had an extra, nobody knew about it. If you understand where I'm going.
That could be very shocking.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm saying is that it wasn't culturally, it wasn't the norm. What was the norm was responsibility.
Yes,
where I'm going, which is not what we have now. What we have now, sex toys, is they don't want you to have sex toys. Then you have the fundamentalists telling you that if you have sex toys, you're going to hell. Then you have the people that you have a problem with your marriage. They seem to forget that our society is not as it was in the Bible. Because in the Bible, there wasn't divorce. But now we have divorce.
Sure.
Now we have mature widows. We have mature single women.
Even young widows.
For whatever reason.
Let me ask you this, Solomon Johnson, right? If you were in a relationship, or let's say you're married, and somewhere along the line you realize that maybe, I hope that doesn't happen, we're just giving an instance here, right? So maybe you're diagnosed with high blood pressure, diabetes, all those illnesses that come with age that affects the libido. Would you opt for a sex toy? How would you deal with that?
Well, I would say that before someone goes into a relationship or into marriage, the person needs to take time to define the purpose. So we need to have a purpose.
But isn't sex like a major part of marriage?
For me, sex is not the predominant reason for going to.
It's not. It's not predominant. So it's relevant.
It's relevant. So if there's
at that age, what are you going to?
So if there is any issue, I think my co-panelist here was talking about erectile dysfunction. For me, sex toy is not the solution to that.
What is?
We have natural means of, gaining sexual strength. We have the herbal medicine and what have you. So
before those herbs sit, before those herbs and all those things and medications sit for your, thingamajig to start working again, what happens? During that space where you're trying to make it work again, what happens?
Because you don't really know how long it's going to take.
Exactly.
And you have a wife, you have to be considerate.
Well, I still believe that the use of toys is not the solution. Sometimes it will be as a result of emotional, challenge. So we can sit down and discuss issues instead of using any toy or going in the unnatural way. So we can also seek the advice of a professional, a doctor. So I can go for a test.
She's a professional sex therapist.
So I won't subscribe to, you know.
I'll get to you in a minute, Mr. Sanbe.
Whilst I always start with recognizing his views, but I think that's why I see a lot of men like this. I see their wives, because you see, it's an uncompromising stand in not recognizing that, as the Nigerians say, the body is not wood, and the reality is, when you get married, as he rightly said earlier, marriage has lots of benefits and positives. I mean, I've been married for 22 years. I think it's, yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
22.
That's
yeah, so I'm not speaking out, you know, I'm not speaking out of line. I'm saying there are lots of benefits. Physical intimacy is one benefit. Companionship is another benefit. Procreation, support with children, love, caring, you know, just general banter. So marriage has a lot of benefits. It has a lot of terrible things if it goes wrong. Domestic violence, marital rape, lack of denying of physical intimacy. Some men deny their wives physical intimacy as a sign of punishment.
And vice versa.
They do it, yeah, and vice versa. They do it all the time. Yeah, you meet and you're like, and the thing is, the thing is, with women, sex is emotional.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, for the men sitting here, if you ask your partner for sex and she says no, you need to figure out what you've done. Because if you've turned her buttons right, she will make love to you without blinking. But if you've done something silly, like you've been mean to her, she asked for children's school fees, and you told her to go and find it herself, she's cooking, you're not giving her money, and then on top of that, you want to climb on top of her. Hell no, she's not going to play with you.
Okay, Mr. Sanbe, do you have any further?
What I'm looking at is the issue of the use of sex toys has biopsychosocial and cultural components. And in all of this, the psychological issues will border on what we look at as Africans: anxiety, fear of replacement. Okay? Now, if this man knows, does that mean I won't be relevant again? Then when we look at absentee husbands, absentee wives, you know, these are issues. However, I mean, researches are done everywhere, and some have come up with the fact that heterosexual partners do not require, I mean, that much of sex toys or adult toys. But psychologically, there are issues. Where in any relationship there is demand or request for sex toys, as a psychologist, you do longitudinal assessment of the individual and or the couple to be able to see what are the underlying issues. Like when I was granting an interview to a TV station and I was being asked what could make a lady to do extra, I was talking about issues of diabetes, low libido.
That's health issues.
You know, all these. And the lady was like, I said, you are thinking of economic reasons. I said, the lady or the madam of the house who is being serviced by the gate man, who pays for the service? Is it the gate man that will pay for the service, or madam will increase the pay? These are issues. Okay? Where the husband is absent and the lady could not hold body, to use the Homer's statement of body no be firewood. Okay? All these are dynamics that one will have to look into as professional psychologists, so that at the point that you are able to get your finger on the right issues and you bring the partners together to be able to see. Let us look at wherever we are attending to issues like this. I'm sure Ihoma will agree with me that we can't run away from cultural issues.
You know, someone said, I was having before this, before the show, I was having a discussion with someone, and she said that it is possible that use of sex toys is related to midlife crisis. Is that
Not
true?
necessarily so, because it can happen in adolescence.
Yeah.
Exploration, adolescent stage is a stage of storm and stress, high level of exploration, daring, argument, and, you know.
No, but at adolescent stage, it's not encouraged to have sex toys, is it? Is it encouraged?
It is a matter of buy off the shelf. You have your wallet.
No, I mean a situation where people would a person who goes to buy sex toys at the teenage age, you're obviously hiding and all that.
No.
Let's just go back first.
That's right.
Let's take it back. Go a step back.
All right.
The age of majority is 18.
That's what you say.
Yeah.
Anything before that, they are minors. So they shouldn't even be featuring in the equation.
That's right.
The kind of sex education that they will need is safety, precaution. Everything he described about young people should take place in a sexual health education
Class.
for which we're already failing anyway. Let's get that clear.
Okay. Very
Then,
clear.
over 18, there's an obsession with virginity.
That's right.
In an African society,
Not
yes.
African,
No,
in Nigerian.
In
I've
Nigeria?
lived in other parts of Africa. It's not as bad as here.
Okay.
Here is just fundamentalists and all the others.
Could you go easy on him being a
No,
fundamentalist?
I have to say it because they're my biggest problem.
I'll
You
get
know
to
why?
you in a minute.
I have to manage people and relationships whose first port of call is their pastor, who is not a counselor, a sex therapist, or an expert in anything. They are my biggest problem. Why? A woman's been raped, or a child has been raped. It may have happened between the ages of 1 to 18. I'm giving you this is a case that I've dealt with in the last 6 months. The parents haven't dealt with it. It's hush hush. Pastor says don't do anything. Pastor says this, pastor says that. Church does, what is that thing? Is it deliverance? That
Deliverance.
They do? Uh-huh. The child grows up into an adult. The parents are just happy that the girl has found a husband.
Yeah.
The girl gets married. Wala enters.
That's right.
Why? She can't.
Psychological
absolutely.
challenges?
Absolutely. Psychological trauma. She keeps on reliving. Anytime her husband wants to make love to her, she relives the rape. And that's how the boy called us. By the time we spoke to him 2 or 3 times, we realized that sex toy was because he called to get a sex toy to increase his wife's libido. And we said, no, you don't need sex toys. She needs to go for counseling first.
So you also advise people on the right thing to do, other alternatives.
Yeah, I said to him, look, my making of money is not like this because the one you need is a professional. And I'm even the wrong type. What she needs is a trauma counselor to deal with the residue of the rape when she was a child.
Yes.
She's so traumatized from the rape. So we have lots of women like that. And unfortunately, they fall into the hands of the church. That for me is where the problem is. Because they're not experts to deal with it. Do you understand where I'm going?
Yeah, I get it, but I
Not
think
only the
it's
church,
fair.
mosque, traditional
Yeah,
herbalists, or
religious
whatever.
institutions.
Yeah,
Religious
society
I'm speaking
institutions.
for church
Society,
because I see him
friends,
here. Anyone else, I would have said the same thing.
Yeah.
They're causing more problem.
Right, Solomon, I think it's just right I give you, you've been itching to talk, so the ground is yours now.
Well, I think we are so obsessed with technology, and if every one of us share the notion of my elderly co-panelists, I think there is going to be a time when humans will not get a man will not get married to a woman, even woman will not get married to a man.
So you think the fear of replacement is right?
That's the anxiety.
What?
You think anxiety, fear of replacement is right? Like people being afraid that sex toys are eventually going to replace human beings?
Yes, it will replace. And based on what she said sex involves emotion, it involves feelings. So what emotion, what pleasure, what does a sex toy, is it a living thing? It is not. It is not a living thing. It is not a living thing. So since sex involves emotion, acceptance, and feelings, I believe the only way we can derive that pleasure. If
it's not a human being, it cannot be a human being.
It can never.
Okay.
And I have a question for her.
You have a question for her? Go ahead.
With due respect, man, imagine yourself having 3 daughters. And from a cultural perspective, the joy of motherhood is, having children, seeing their grandchildren. So when your daughters, when they attain a marriageable age, and they now approach you and tell you, mommy, I don't want to get married, though. I prefer having a sex doll as my partner. How would you feel?
Can I tell you something? You see? Unfortunately, I'm the wrong person who's asked that question to. You know why?
Why?
I think, and that's not a discussion for today, but I think that as women and as couples, as Nigerians, as we become more educated and accepting, we realize that we don't have to be married if we don't want to be married. Yes. You don't have to have children if you don't want to have children. Yes. If you want to have children, go ahead. That choice is yours to make. I can't dictate for you how many kids to have. And you see, my dear, I'm the wrongest person to ask that.
This is the Inside Out Show. We will be right back after this short break. Stay with us. Okay, welcome back. It's the Inside Out Show, and we are discussing the very controversial topic, adult toys. So you can go online to our social media pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and let us know what you think about this topic. Do you support it? Do you not support it? Or are you one of those people who would say that they don't support it, and then you go to patronize the Hilma? Are you? Okay, so Mr. Sanbe, we're talking about the psychological angle to this.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, you can carry on.
Maybe to take it off from there, there was a case of a patient that I saw having this international background of mixed racing. And at the end of the day, at the round, I mentioned that some of us here will be having the feeling of a culture that, this couple need one more like this, because the young girl was just waiting to be 18.
Thank you.
And said, off she will go anywhere in America, okay? And by that, I told my colleagues that they have institutions to support them, okay? If the parents get to old age, they can even volunteer that they are going to old people's home. So they don't need to wait for onjomo, so to say, in our own parlance, So the idea of all these are emotional and are unrealistic. Just like years gone by, an average Nigerian shouldn't be wearing trousers. But here we go, it is acceptable now.
Yeah.
There was a time, a bill to sign LGBT by Jonathan was turned down. Proposed from the US. And right now we were told that even the US president refused to sign the bill. So these are issues. So as we go along, thoughts will change, feelings and behaviors will change. And so decisions will equally change. And that is why psychologists are continuously learning, researching, and presenting issues in a manner that is acceptable and reasonable, scientific, and acceptable to the community they are serving.
Okay.
Thank you.
Solomon.
I have a question for him.
Yes. Okay.
You know, it said that those who decided not to have children, by the time they get old, they go to home for the elderly. So the question is that those who will take care of them, is it not someone that gave birth to them? So what if those who gave birth to them decided that we are also using sex in adults? How will it look like?
We don't handle, gentlemen, the audience, as a scientist. As a scientist, you don't assume that everything will be perfect. As we are speaking now, some people are getting into relationship and they are signing agreement that no children, please.
Population control.
Some will say not more than one. Some will say, I can hear it's true from the audience, because as a psychologist, you are supposed to feel those that you are relating with. Did I hear that's true there? Yeah. So end of discussion. Thank you.
Charles, let me I want to buttress his point. I'm Nigerian.
Yes.
I'm Igbo, from Imo State. But I'm married. My husband is from Olo. My husband, when he courted me, he told me he wanted one child. It was very clear. He's Nigerian. He was born and bred in Nigeria. I am the one that wasn't born here. I'm a dual national. So when he told me he wanted one child, I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. We lived in England. It's no big deal. However, when we moved to Nigeria, I realized that the one child we had was not enough. Why? The structures for looking after one child in the UK was wider.
That's right.
I had a network of aunties born and bred like myself in the UK. In fact, even though I had one child, I had several cousins who also had one. So what will happen is we had a rotation, or I carried them this weekend. My son didn't know for many years that his cousins were not his brother and sister. They were cousins, because this auntie would take him this week. This one would take him this week. He didn't know that they were relatives. He thought they were siblings. But that changed when we came to Nigeria, because there are no facilities. So you have to breed. It took me 6 years of negotiating with my husband to have my second child. 6 years. Why? I had to negotiate with him to agree that we needed a second child. So I think that with sex toys, you have to, couples agree. I have couples, you know, an elderly gentleman, his wife is a lot young. You see, when all these Nigerian men are going around marrying, they're 60, their wife is 40, I always tell them, be careful. He couldn't get it up anymore. He'd had a series of strokes. It just wasn't working anymore. So he had to get a strap on, because he didn't want his wife to go outside.
How is she?
So you see, and this is where, they had been trying to address the issue for many years. And his wife was 42, 43. So when he was 40, she was still 20, 21.
Wow.
Exactly.
That's
It's a big gap, but it's very common here. So so when he was telling me, I was like, just get a strap on. Right. So if you were to follow his analogy, so what happens to the woman?
What happens to the woman?
She will find a small boyfriend.
What happens to the woman then?
What happens to the woman? Oh, you are lost.
No, I'm not lost.
Okay, now respond, yeah.
So if you were the man, what would you do? Your wife is 42 and you're, let's say, 60, and you can't get it up anymore. What would you do?
You see, what I'm able to deduce from their submission is that, the best way to treat sexual issues is going maybe artificial, the scientific way, but the natural way has been swept under the carpet. Before the advent of scientific medicine, we are Africans. We know the way we do all these things. We have ewe ategbo, the natural way. And in those days, you find a man of 70 years impregnating a girl of 18 years, acquiring many wives. For me, it's so unfortunate, with due respect, that the older generation, they are sweeping our natural way of treating sexual issues under the carpet. So before the advent of all these psychologists, scientific medicine, we have natural herbs. Go to Mushi, you will find them there. But excuse me, but I still believe that if we are opting for a natural way of curing sexual issues, there should be dosage. You understand? So there should be a limit to what we take.
If your wife chooses to introduce it to your relationship, to your marriage, would you support it?
No, I won't subscribe to that.
This is the Inside Out Show. When we come back, a bit of this discussion, and then we move on to hear from the audience. Don't go away. We'll be right back on the Inside Out Show. Welcome back to the Inside Out Show. We are discussing adult toys, and yes, it's been a pretty heated up discussion, different angles. I'm not even going to call some of the names they called. Anyway, before we get to the audience, Charles, let's have your comments or your thoughts so far on the discussion.
Okay, so we put up a post on Facebook first.
Yeah.
And we said, is it okay to use sex toys? And of course, typical Nigerians, everybody has said no.
Everybody said no.
Yes.
Wow.
But then again, my point of view, my comment as regards this, I feel, personally, I'm very finicky when it comes to sexual escapades or even having wanted to have sex in the first place. I mean, I'm concerned about who the person is, what your status like, your health, and all of those things. And then again, what better way to avoid all of this unnecessary drama, if not via this means? Even though I haven't really thought about using it before, but I think I should because it sounds really interesting. So my point is, I don't think they're bad. Okay. I don't think it's wrong to use sex toys. I just feel, if it what tickles your fancy,
go for it.
Go for it. Do it. If there are reasons as well for why you want to do that, what's stopping you really? I mean, you can buy it off any her website. That brings me to my question. Yeah, you said so much about selling to couples and what's the word now? Counseling couples and all of those things. And I'm here thinking, doesn't she sell to single people as well, or you don't?
We have such a negative view about sex toys that it actually gets in the way of people addressing their problems. I remember a customer telling me, would my pastor know? And I was thinking, I don't even know what church you go to. But people are terrified of their pastors knowing, but they're buying it anyway. So we sell adult toys, and it's a consumer product. Can you afford to buy it? Do you buy it? I do think there needs to be some education about adult toys. There are fake adult toys in the market. Nigerians, we like money. So people have gone to China to print substandard and bring them in. So the market is a bit flooded. So you have to really take your time to make sure you use Google to Google the name of the company, the manufacturer. Make sure it's a reputable company. That's the name of the product. So before you insert it in your body. I'm quite comfortable discussing adult toys because it's a reality.
Okay. All right, so your question answered?
I'm done. She's answered.
Fantastic. Okay, so now time to hear from my audience. Let's have you.
What a person decides to do with his body is nobody's business. But if I want to break it down, left to me, I would not advise anybody to use a sex toy. Sex toy, as a blogger and as a journalist, when the sex toy was going rampant, 3 months ago, I decided to make my findings on it. It contains something called phytalenids, if I'm correct. I don't know whether you know of it. Phytalenids, I don't know of that. But when I Googled it, I said, what was this thing? This thing causes the sex toy. Over time, most of them, it's called PVC. If you look at the ingredients, even now, some sex toy company has started scrapping that name. This thing causes causes damage to the kidney, to the liver, to the lungs. This is a fact. You can Google it online. Most of these people that use this thing, they don't know of this because they have scraped the ingredients of, and when you use it, you now start smelling. If you put the sex toy down for a period of time, it starts getting sweaty and it starts smelling. So the health hazard is the number one reason why I will advise everybody, stay away from sex toys. In some countries, illegal. Malaysia, India, and I don't know the last African country, they have made it illegal that based on health hazards, this sex toy is not advisable.
Right. So does it have side effects? Yes, go on, please.
Can I?
Course,
he has
please.
a valid point. But guess what? And that is why it is important you don't buy fake adult toys. He's absolutely right. All the names he mentioned, but the original toys don't have these names. It's PVC free. It will list all the frees because they are dangerous to the body. I think you're right, absolutely right. But for somebody like me, I don't sell those kinds of products. But I think he's alarming people by saying that they give all these other things. No, that's not true. That is not true. There's no statistical research. Otherwise, the Federal Drug Agency of America will not approve them.
If it is not original, then
true.
it is not original.
Okay.
So,
And you will know that it's not original because the instructions will not be in English. It would have one Chinese-looking girl on the front. That is everything is not in English. And then when you touch it, it's going to give off a smell, new. It's going to be feeling off. You know it's not original.
Okay. Thanks for educating us. All right, so we have a few questions scripted down here. One says, when you use the sex toy, will you get pregnant?
Is that a legitimate question?
Yes, that's your question.
Oh, okay.
Obvious.
Do you know how biology works?
Wait, somebody wrote it down. I have to
How
ask
are you going
it.
to respond? How are you going to respond to that?
You want to respond
you
to
use
it?
a sex toy, you're going to get pregnant. It's
let
like
me just-
saying, can you use if you use a bottle, will you get pregnant?
You really want to respond to it?
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. I think the essence of sex from the beginning is for procreation, and that is the knowledge we all have. So, which is the natural, purpose of sex. So, I think bringing in the use of sex toys or use of dolls is a way of poisoning the mind of the audience, because culturally it's something alien to us.
I think we mustn't go down the cultural route at all, because culture has been known to subjugate poor people, women, the vulnerable, the weak. So I'm
now that you're talking about culture, I should ask this question at once so you can
Yeah.
talk about both at the same time. This one says, what do you mean by our culture, we are virginity obsessed?
We are virginity obsessed, whether we like it or not. We are. That is who we are. You have the churches, you have all religions going about, be pious, close your legs, don't let him touch you. If he touches you, you'll be pregnant. But we're not giving them the skills to say, okay, bros, I like us being friends, but I'm not ready to make love. So the girls don't have the skills. The boys don't have the skills to accept.
Handle rejection.
Absolutely.
Okay, you know what? We're just about to wrap up. I have two very quick questions for you, Iham, as well. First one, is it hygienic for the toy to be shared between two people? And if yes, can you get sexually transmitted diseases through them?
You're not allowed to share any sexual toy, whether
Okay.
it is the doll, a dildo, or vibrator. If you engage in alternative sexual habits, and what do I mean? A ménage à trois, young people, I don't know, they watch videos and they get all excited and they want to do two boys, two girls, swinging from the tree, chandelier, whatever. Your toy must always have a condom on it. And each time somebody uses it, You take off a condom and you put another one on. You're not
Okay,
allowed.
a second quick question. Is there a cleaning process for reuse?
Yes, there are cleaning processes.
Okay.
Subject to whether it is battery operated or rechargeable. If it's rechargeable, where the head is, you don't put it in water. You rinse it in warm water this way, and you air dry it. You leave it to dry rather than put it away immediately.
Okay.
You clean it before you insert anything in your body, either through the vagina or through any other part of the body. It has to be cleaned. It has to be washed. But more importantly, the sex toy is like anything else. If you were sleeping with a male partner for the first time, you will insist on a condom, isn't it?
Of course.
Yeah? You will insist on a condom. In fact, like I recognize some of what he said, where being finicky, where you look at the person, there's even the way the person will talk, you will decide, I'm not sleeping with you anymore. If he has saliva coming from his mouth, if you look at his toenails and he's disgusting, you're like, damn. If your toenails are disgusting, that means the rest of you must be just wild. So these are all factors as well. But with toys, you have to clean them. You have to wash them before use, wash them after use. If you have a doll, you have to use a condom on your penis before you insert it in the doll. Some of the points earlier that the young man spoke about for phthalates are there, especially if they're not original products. So you've got to be exceptionally careful for your own health and well-being as well.
Right. Okay. All right. So just before we wrap up the show, final thoughts, Mr. Sanbe?
Psychologists are required. All advanced communities, for every little thing about their lives, they consult the psychologist. The psychologists study how man thinks, feels, and behaves. All that we are discussing all the while had been a product or byproduct of how we are thinking, how we are feeling, and how we are behaving about sex dolls. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And Solomon?
Well, I still feel that sex is a gift from God. And the only way we can show our appreciation for the God-given gift of sex is by using that gift in a proper way. And from the beginning, there was nothing like sex dolls, dildo, and what have you. So sex was between a man and woman. So for me, we need to show appreciation for this gift by playing the game in the proper way, following the precedent from the scripture. So when we do this, I think it will go well with us.
Okay. Finally, Iheoma.
My last point, I think we should take time to become more sexually health aware. We should understand what our bodies are. Those in relationships should take time to effectively communicate their desires and needs to their partners. If it means bringing in or introducing a sex toy into the relationship, you should do it as a couple, and you do it in harmony. Be safe with toys. Know what you're doing. And I think you'll be fine. I think the most important thing is education.
Yeah.
Be sexually health education aware.
Mm-hmm. Right. Charles? Finicky Charles.
I might sound like a broken record right now, but truth is, I know I've always said this, whatever works for you does work for you. If using sex toys makes you happy and solves all your plenty issues, then by all means do use it. But if it doesn't work for you and you don't like it, like he doesn't, stay away from it. It's a choice. No one's forcing you to do anything. So.
Yeah. Personally, I think that sex is a very important part of any relationship, right? And so if you have to go to sex dolls to help you enhance your relationship, I'm open to it. I am, quite frankly, I am. But in a way that you abuse it, I don't think abuse of anything is just wrong completely, right? So that's basically my view of it. So, but there you are, go make up your mind. You've listened to the conversation. The choice is yours, right? Just make sure that you hit the information or the caution that Ihoma has given us. And then you know where to contact her, right? Okay, so that's why we call it a wrap. That's why we call it a wrap on the show. Thank you so much to our partners, DJ Rabiu, Beauty by Omalicha, KGM Nigeria Limited, Aquadana, Deli Foods, Fortney, and Baker's World. And for Last Place, thank you so much for being a part of this show, for partnering with us, basically. Until the next episode, guys, don't forget to go to our social media pages and like our comments and share your thoughts about this show with us as well. We love to hear from you. So, see you then. Thank you for watching today's episode. Oh, gosh.